So this video is going to be a spur-of-the-moment class that we've taken on some advanced first aid training that Richard had found, and I learned a lot. It's something we take for granted, even being prior military and law enforcement, all the things that we've done and things we haven't practiced. So what I'd like to do is go into just a couple minutes of the video that we shot at the class, and we did a small interview, and I believe his name was Rick.
Rick, yep.
And the business that he was from was?
Angel Trauma Solutions.
Angel Trauma Solutions. And one of the things when we talked with Rick at the end, we did a little interview, we're going to post it up here in a minute, is that he offers a 2-day wilderness first aid class where they go over a lot of stuff that might be involved in not just the shooting part that we do, but also in the hunting world. So we may actually invite him in for a 2-day class. But I was shocked. I almost canceled because it was such a long day yesterday and didn't get out late and we were busy.
Yeah, so it was good though. I mean, it was. You sign up for these classes and you don't really know what you're going to get. Rick seemed pretty squared away when I met him briefly at a local gun show. So I signed up for it straight away because my interest was already peaked and I was already thinking about improving my skill set a little bit. I always carry a first aid kit, but not to the level to be able to take care of a major bleeding event, whatever that might be. More likely to be a car accident than the business that we're involved in. Right. And actually the night before I just saw a big smash and caught it on my dash cam, right? So that could have been, a little preemptive. But anyway, it was a great course. I think we got much more out of it than we expected because Rick put in like an extra hour of teaching beyond what we were expecting. So I was expecting a 2.5-hour class and it turned into a 3.5-hour class. And then, of course, we held him back to have a little interview.
And if you're not prepared for this or you just don't even have the things to deal with it, I thought the things that he brought up at the beginning of the video was just astounding.
Yeah, and also we can all go out and buy these pieces of equipment or whatever you want to refer to them as, unless you know how to use them and have some reasonable training that's up to date. It's kind of like, well, hey, Jamie, I've got one of these. Do you want to use that? You need the skills that go with these pieces of equipment. And then, from my perspective, I kind of knew where I thought I was going to go before the class. But after doing some of the practical side of it that you saw in the video, I think the quantities that I'm going to purchase are going to be slightly different now.
Yeah, when you talked about the bandages, and stopping a massive bleeding. So here's some of the facts that was fascinating. And I've preached on this in the past, and I think even on the podcast I've talked about safety and, being prepared to take care of yourself as well as other people that are with you. Yeah. And how many times I've been out at matches and events where nobody had a first aid kit. I've been on hunting trips where, a guy doesn't even have a Band-Aid to do a blister, and let alone if you seriously get hurt. Mm-hmm. But, some of the things that he said in the class, because he's a retired Marine and did 20 plus years.
Yeah, 21 years as a Navy corpsman.
Yeah, so he's got the experience, but response time on average in the area that we were in yesterday where he teaching the class was 8 minutes.
And that was a built-up area.
And that was a built-up area?
Yeah.
And most fatalities are preventable. Most fatalities are blood loss.
Right. So if you're there, you've got some equipment and more importantly some knowledge because you can actually do a lot of the stuff we learned yesterday without specialist equipment. Yeah. You can make a difference.
Yes, and like in our industry, we want to make sure that we're prepared. I mean, we never want an accident. I hope we never see one, really. But there has been accidents at public ranges, at events, and where people have been seriously hurt. And just the fact that, he said the most survivable accident that most people succumb to is not the actual injury. It's just that no one can stop the bleeding or knows how. Yeah. And that was really the core of the class yesterday. And it was a real eye-opener.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. I learned from start to finish. I learned some crazy stuff as well, like when you put people in a recovery position, it's always to the right, unless they're pregnant, and then it's to the left. Yeah. And I never knew that.
I took notes after notes after notes, and as much as I've done this before and I'm pretty familiar with the equipment, it's one of those things that we just stopped training on and stopped learning on, and it was a real eye-opener. I really appreciated Richard signing up for the class and the invite, it was way more than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah. And it wasn't expensive either. It wasn't an expensive class just for an evening at a local gun club up there in Pittsburgh. So.
Yeah. So equipment wise, like I said, we have this is my kit that stays in my Jeep. Richard has his kit. This one stays in my range bag, and we have a bigger kit at our range, and then we actually have a field kit. We have a third kit that we take when we go out and about. If we're out in the mountains and we're really got people back, we even have a small portable stretcher in case somebody really suffers a severe back injury, or we've got to get them out of an area where we just can't get them. Well, there's a lot to think about with this. One of the things that I hark on with guys going out on hunting trips, and we were talking about this in the interview, was I know a lot of people that are professionals in the industry. I also know a lot of people that go on hunts with guides that are part-time guides that have no training in this, that show up and they don't have any first aid equipment at all to deal with anything. You're 5 miles or 10 miles back into the backcountry. Small injuries turn into really life-threatening situations in a hurry if you just don't have some simple equipment and some know how to use it.
Yeah, I mean, you even just with axes and knives and stuff that you might have at camp, you get a suitable enough cut in the wrong place, and you need some pretty serious medical attention as fast as it can get there.
Yeah. Oh my God, yeah. Just watch people, taking care of animals and skinning them and watching them cape an animal and how foolish and careless sometimes they are and hacking away. And it only takes one small mistake.
Yeah,
and
one
you're
slash
really
across your wrist, and you got a major bleeder going on right there.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about this more on a podcast. So we're going to invite Rick on and maybe invite some professionals on to talk about this. And then I've talked to Richard and Rick and maybe see about inviting them in for a 2-day wilderness first aid course for guys that really want to learn how to use this stuff. And maybe not. They may never need it for themselves, but if you take the class and you've got the equipment, you may actually be that person who makes a difference and maybe save somebody's life that you're out with, or in a hunting party that you just bumped into where somebody's hurt. So there's a lot of value in it.
Yeah, it's like they say, the life you save might be your own.
Yeah,
yeah, it might be somebody else's, but you'll be better positioned to take care of loved ones or whatever,
Oh, absolutely. Like he had us right out of the gate applying self-tourniquet. Which, something you don't hear people talk about. You're always being taught how to apply it to other people. And just the 3 different types of tourniquets he had in the class, and some worked really well.
Yeah, that was very, like from the very basic, the rubber elastic one that was the most basic that you could have that could be used for other things as well, to the 2 major types of tourniquet. I mean, it was interesting to get hands-on and try them and kind of make some decisions about, if you're thinking of buying stuff, which ones to go for, which was pretty interesting.
Yeah, and so I don't want to turn this into, a 35-minute video or just, relentlessly beating on this subject, but there's a lot of importance to this, especially if you're traveling to matches where there's 200 or 300 people, 100 people, 4 different relays, people all over the place. Who has the first aid kit?
Right.
Where's it at? And so you go to these matches and you go on these hunting trips thinking that somebody's there with the equipment quickly, knows where it's at, and I think in a panic situation that could be anything but the truth.
Yes, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Right. So you got to be prepared to look after yourself and have the right stuff on you.
And I'm going to bring up just one last point here before we wrap it up. And then we had a young kid come through, and he was a great kid. He was probably 14, 15 years old. Came through the shooting school, and we have adults come through all the time. Like I said, we've been doing it for 15 years. Mm-hmm. The first thing he asked me when we got to the range was if we had a first aid kit. And he had just taken a first aid class. And I thought, of all the adults that have been through here, no one's ever asked.
No one's ever asked, yeah.
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
And so if you go to an event or a match or something, if you don't have this equipment, maybe ask, hey, what's the policy? What's the procedure if somebody seriously gets hurt? Where's the first aid kit? I know a little bit about it or how to use it. If you need my help, I'm available.
Yeah, just tell me. Who's the go-to person? Yeah,
who's in charge? At least getting them the treatment necessary till they can get to or have a real, paramedics and emergency responders get there.
Yeah, I mean, that's the primary thing that I always think about is, if you've got an emergency situation, there's a finite amount of time for someone to take some very serious action before the professionals turn up.
Yeah.
If you're in a built-up area, you've probably got 10 to 15 minutes where if you're the only person there, like I was at this car accident the other night, you're the first person there. If there'd been someone had I don't know, slashed themselves on some broken glass or whatever, you're it. If they're not able to take care of themselves, don't have the skills or the equipment or whatever, you're it. And in that situation, built up area, 9:30, quarter to 10 at night, it was 15 minutes before the first police car turned up, and it was another 5 minutes before the ambulance turned up.
Yeah, and you might be that person to buy that buffer or that time to stretch that person, life out long enough to get the professionals there. So if nothing else, you're going to be that buffer, or maybe buy them that few extra minutes might make a little difference. Yeah. And I think once you learn that, hey, you can make a difference and do some of this stuff, I think you realize how much you don't know and how much more you would like to know.
Right, and also, we were in the military. I was in the military 100 years ago. Technology in medical care has moved on so much that a lot of the things that definitely would have killed you on the battlefield 25 years ago are now survivable events.
Yeah.
And it's this kind of care, the products that we can all purchase fairly easily will make that happen, enable that to happen now. Yeah. Which is pretty good.
Excellent. So stay tuned. We'll probably post up some more. We're probably going to do a podcast on this and invite Rick on the podcast to talk about the wilderness first aid part of it. Gets into a lot of stuff that we'll do for hunting and shooting. And then I think maybe a conversation about having them come in for a 2-day class here might be worthwhile.
Yeah, that would be great.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much. You can see a lot of the information down below. If you want to check out Rick's website, you can click on it. If you enjoyed the videos, please subscribe and hit that notification bell. It means a lot. We really appreciate you tuning in. Richard, any final words you'd like to say?
Yeah, I mean, anyone has any comments about the type of equipment they keep with them on a regular basis for a range trip or a hunting trip, throw it in the comments.
Fair enough. Thanks so much for joining us. See you next video.